welcome to the first ever installment of the Woad Warriors new line of videos, movies that don't suck. Today I'm going to be covering the 1997 sci-fi horror film Event Horizon, starring Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne as the primary characters. I'm going to go over a little bit of synopsis of the film, maybe talk a little bit about the characters, and then at the end I'm going to talk about how this ties into the 40K universe and how there's a few items in here that are earmarked that seem to show an influence of the Chaos Gods within the Event Horizon. So, without further ado, join my dollar store Kratos looking ass for a ride on board the Event Horizon. The primary characters in the film are Captain S.J. Miller, who is the commanding officer of the Lewis and Clark, a rescue ship that is sent to investigate the remains of the Event Horizon when it mysteriously reappears after its 7-year hiatus to God knows where, is played by the outstanding Lawrence Fishburne. Love this guy. He's great. I mean, he was Morpheus for, what it's worth. But he's a hard-nosed military dude. No nonsense, no BS. Really takes care of business and tries to take care of his crew as best he can. He's experienced some personal tragedies regarding the loss of a crewmate earlier in his career, and it's really impacted his decisions and his thought patterns. And then you have Dr. William Ware, or Billy, played by Sam Neill. Apparently, he's done diddling dinosaurs, and now he's going to Space Hellraiser. Here he is. He is the genius that invented the ship's drive, the gravity drive, which alters the very fabric of time and space, effectively creating a black hole to transmit the ship from one place to another within the universe instantaneously. He's got some psychological issues from the loss of his wife due to suicide, and throughout the film he keeps having dreams where he sees her walking around suspiciously with no eyes. So, totally not ominous at all. Next up in the crew is Captain Miller's XO and communications officer, Lieutenant Stark, played by Jolie Richardson. She does a really solid job in this role. Very believable. Next to her is Kathleen Quinlan as Peters, who is the ship's medical technician, or I'm assuming kind of like a nurse. The rest of the crew commonly refers to her as Mama Bear, since she seems to be very interested in taking care of everyone on board. Also noted that she has a disabled son back on Earth who appears throughout the film in flashbacks, as well as one of the videos that she's watching when the crew is on board the Lewis and Clark and getting ready for their mission. Next on the list of crew members are Smitty Smith, who is the pilot, played by Sean Pertwee, and Cooper, played by Richard T. Jones, the rescue technician of the ship. They kind of downplay him a little bit, I think, with the title, but I see this guy as kind of like a space pararescueman or a Navy rescue diver. He's kind of a badass dude, going out there into the vacuum of space to repair ships and rescue people. Both of these guys are kind of wise asses throughout the film. Cooper's more upbeat and funny, whereas Smitty's kind of a pessimistic dude who, I guess you could say, he calls it like it is, but a lot of time he comes off as a bit negative. But he seems to know what he's doing when it comes to flying the Lewis and Clark. Rounding out the crew is Ensign Justin Smith, who's Lewis and Clark's chief engineer. He's played by Jack Noseworthy. He's the youngest guy. He's kind of the kid. There seems to be like a special relationship in between him and Peters. He refers to her as Mama Bear a lot. Kind of sees her as a matronly figure. And then you have Jason Isaacs playing DJ, the ship's surgeon, medical doctor. He's kind of a broody dude. Justin seems to be, just a fairly positive young officer trying to do his best, while his DJ is a little bit of a, I guess you could almost say he's kind of mysterious. I don't know. I still haven't forgiven him what he did to Heath Ledger in The Patriot, so you're on my list, Jason. Hope you enjoyed those low res pictures of the crew as I gave you a little brief synopsis of their characters as far as what their positions are on the Lewis and Clark. Now I'm going to give you the quick and dirty of what actually happened and why they were on the mission to go find the Event Horizon in the first place. The movie starts out with Sam Neill aboard a space station orbiting Earth, and he gets a phone call saying, "Hey, you need to go. The Event Horizon has popped back up after being missing for 7 years, and oh, in fact, it was in a decaying orbit over Neptune." The Lewis and Clark's crew was recalled off leave on short notice for the mission, so they're understandably not terribly jazzed about taking Dr. Ware wherever he needs to go. They have a brief meeting aboard the ship. Everybody kind of keeps arm's distance from Dr. Ware due to them having to forego their rest and relaxation time to cart this dude across the solar system onto Neptune, which is, several billion miles away from the closest outpost. And then they slap him in grav tubes, which is, I guess, their version of suspended animation or some sort of like a hibernation pod. Basically, it keeps your body from turning into jelly when they engage the ion drive and head towards Neptune, because the G forces would liquefy your bones and your intestines, and all your other pieces would all become one gelatinous mass, which probably not ideal. Eventually, they do get to close station with Neptune, and they come out of their grab tubes and they get ready to go and actually find the ship. But it's hard to find because there's a big, since it's in this decaying orbit around Neptune, it's kind of covered with ion storms, and there's a bunch of, looks like lightning strikes, but it's, electricity from the ion storms around Neptune arcing off the ship and is obscuring visibility. So they come right up on it, almost crashing into it before Smitty manages to pull them out. They glide along the side of the ship until they can find a docking port. And when they find a docking port, it has an ominous number attached to it. The Lewis and Clark makes its way to docking port 13 because, that's a great number for a ship's docking port. It's definitely not a portent of things to come. There's definitely no bad luck involved. Especially, I don't have triskaidekaphobia or anything, but I'm pretty sure that 13 is widely regarded as not a lucky number. Uh, they extend the umbilical, get onto the ship, and then overall they go about splitting up and restoring systems around the ship, such as gravity, life support, and they send Justin, the young engineer, to the back of the ship by himself, where the ship's gravity drive is. And when he's there, it turns on, even though it's not supposed to turn on. It's physically impossible based off the parameters that the ship is currently operating in. The three rings align, becomes a shimmering black pool, and he wisely goes up and sticks his hand in and is immediately yanked through by something to God knows who where. And they eventually get him out, but he's not the same. He's in a catatonic state. They take him to the med bay. Peters looks after him. While she's there, she hears a weird noise. She goes to check it out, and she sees her son with gross lesions and maggots crawling on his legs. So she understandably gets the hell out of there and heads back up to the bridge. Oh, and by the way, the bridge, when they found it, yeah, there's blood and human viscera all over the thing. They're up there trying to find the logs, trying to figure out what's going on. And it's not getting any better. Everything keeps getting worse. Dr. Ware seems to be most particularly affected. He's seeing his dead wife walking around the ship, and she's talking to him, and she has no eyes, but she has such beautiful things to show him. So, totally not off putting. As the movie progresses, eventually Justin comes out of it and walks to the airlock and decides it'd be a good idea to take little John out into the expanse without a suit on. And Peters and Stark frantically try and figure out a way to get him out while Captain Miller maneuvers himself into a position to rescue him. Then apparently Justin decides that he's about to snap out of it, but right before he snaps out of it, he says this.
What does?
The dark inside me.
After that lovely little bit of information, Justin ends up going out the airlock, starts going through explosive decompression or some of that nature with his eyes bleeding out and blood coming out of all his orifices. Miller catches him, brings him back in. Then DJ and Peters work on him, try and stabilize him, which they do, but he's seriously jacked up. At this point, people are starting to realize that something is seriously wrong with the ship. Miller and DJ end up having a discussion about what they think might actually be going on here, and one of the cryptic messages that they received from the logbooks in the bridge computer.
Save yourself from hell.
So everything is officially gotten worse now that they have figured this a little bit out, that this place, or the ship, has gone someplace that we're not supposed to go. And meanwhile, in the meantime, Dr. Ware ends up going Super Saiyan, turned into a construct of the ship, basically. He's super powerful, tries to trap them all on the ship, and he wants to send everybody basically to the other place they were, which is, totally not hell. And he has I won't say it's a final confrontation because there's one more, but he has a pretty gnarly confrontation with Miller and Stark on the bridge, and he has this to say about the ship.
Pure chaos. Pure evil.
Well, pour me a glass of warm milk and read me a bedtime story because I feel totally safe now. Miller and Stark end up escaping from the bridge. Cooper, who was on the outside repairing the Lewis and Clark, because when the gravity drive was initiated, the part that took Justin when he went through the portal in the beginning, which I didn't really cover, damaged the ship. Cooper was out there repairing it. Dr. Ware goes and takes an explosive and puts it in Lewis and Clark, blows it straight to hell, and Cooper goes flying off. Smitty buys it, and Cooper blows the jet on his EVS suit to vent his oxygen so he can make his way back to the event horizon straight up Superman style. He gets there, and as soon as he gets there, the glass breaks in the front of the bridge. Ware's evil ass gets sucked out, and Miller and Stark escape. And everything seems to be okay, except now there's no Lewis and Clark, so they have to stay on the ship. They're on the ship trying to figure out what they're going to do now that they're stuck there. Eventually, Miller decides, I saw these charges in the hallway to blow the ass end of the ship off the front end of the ship, so how about we do that? So he goes to arm the explosives to separate the ship, sends Stark, Cooper, and now Justin, who's in one of the grav tubes up in the lifeboat area of the ship, to stay there in safety, and he's going to go blow the ship and come back. Well, as he goes back there, he confronts Super Saiyan Ware again in the actual main gravity chamber where the engine is. They have a big fight, and after Miller gets chased by a flaming effigy of the crew member he lost many years ago, and he decides he's had enough, so he hits the button in the back of the ship and sacrifices himself and goes straight to hell with Super Soldier Saiyan Ware and the ass end of the ship as they get sucked into a black hole. The movie ends up with the 3 final crew members getting rescued after Cooper had activated the emergency beacon prior to getting in the grav tubes before Captain Miller bravely sacrificed himself. And when the 3 rescuers arrive on the ship, when they first get Stark out of the tube, she has another nightmare when the rescuer removes his mask. It's actually the mutated Dr. Ware there to take them wherever he wants to take them, apparently. But that is my little synopsis of the movie. Oh, sorry for the spoilers for a 26-year-old movie. I apologize. However, the big thing that I want to talk about is how this ties into Warhammer 40K and how this could actually be almost like a it's the Thunder Warrior to the Space Marine. It is the proto 40K, so to speak. Um, there's a lot of weird things that you could tie to each of the four chaos gods that takes place on the ship. But how are the gods of chaos tied to the event horizon and its debacle? Well, the ship was missing for 7 years, and seven is the most holy number of Papa Nurgle himself. The ship was seemingly alive, with strange life form DNA RNA readings every time they scanned the ship. Uh, Nurgle is not only the god of entropy and decay, but also of new life. The scene where Peters discovers her son in the medical bay, with his legs covered in lesions and boils, but also crawling with maggots, seems to be a very Nurgle situation to me. Next, we move on to Khorne. Khorne cares not where the blood flows from, just that it flows. Blood for the blood god. There's lots of blood in this film. The very walls of the bridge are covered in blood and human viscera. All the scenes of the crew depicted in the video cam footage that they recover, the crew is just mutilating each other. There's blood everywhere. All sorts of disgusting nastiness going on with dismemberment. And then Ware himself disfigures himself to the point where he's covered in disgusting wounds, oozing blood. He becomes a sacrament to the blood god himself. But what about Slaanesh? And yes, I realize this is not a actual stock footage picture of Slaanesh. However, if I did that, this video could go sideways real quick. So I went for this a little more safe for work picture. Well, again, in the footage of the crew, when they find the original crew of the Event Horizon's logs, the crew was literally murder banging each other to death. And they seem to be enjoying it. And Slaanesh is all about excess and debauchery and hedonism. And all of these events seemingly tie in nicely to the effects that Slaanesh would have upon unprotected travelers in the warp. And last but not least, or least depending, because I think he's kind of a bastard, is Tzeentch, the master of change himself, trickery, and subterfuge. The entire ship is changed. It's changed the crew. There's a crazy supernatural type external force playing against every element of the ship, and it could be playing off of Nurgle influence, bringing the ship to life, or it could just be the master of change creating a final transformation to this once normal ship into the demonic, chaotic entity that it has become. Well, that's about it for me. Thanks for viewing in if you survived through this review up to this point, or synopsis, or whatever you want to call it. Look, I'm just a normal dude who likes movies. I'm not pretty obviously not an expert film critic or anything of that nature. I just know what I like, and I like this film. This movie doesn't suck. So with that, until next time, Wolverines, and I'll let Captain Miller give the final word.
Fuck this shit.